Steve Cooper, Rank Success, and this is another short book review for officers looking to get promoted to constable, sergeant, or whatever you're headed. Today's book review is a little book called Managing Oneself by Peter F. Drucker, and he was a leadership management guru and wrote lots and lots of books, very, very experienced. And this book is a fantastic little book for you in terms of your development and your growth as a leader, as a manager, and as a supervisor, and it can serve you at each rank or just as a general tool for your development. And the thing with this book that I really like is he talks about and raises some fantastic questions, really basic but challenging questions that get to the heart of how you lead or how you choose to lead, and the actions that you take to develop and to grow as an individual, to serve people. And one of the first key questions he asks is, what are my strengths? And in the book he says most people think that they know what they're good at. They're usually wrong. More often people know what they're not good at, and even then more people are wrong than right. And yet a person can perform only from strength. One cannot build performance on weakness. And I think I've always preferred the term development areas rather than weakness. So these questions that he raises in the book are really good. So what are my strengths? So discovering your strengths. You're starting to see this approach within police promotion selection processes. So you may have a CVF application, promotion application, followed by a strengths based interview. I've done a couple of blogs on those, and I think I've done a video, one of these short videos on that, and if not I will do one. But what are my strengths? It's a fundamental key question. If you don't know your strengths, then you are I suppose that is a weakness, which is the angle he's coming from. And the only way to discover your strengths is through feedback. So what are you doing at the moment in relation to feedback? How are you getting it? What form are you getting it in? Who are you getting it from? Because that's the only way you're actually going to measure and be able to tap into your strengths and improve your strengths and remedy any weaknesses that he calls them. Put yourself where your strengths produce results. So have an understanding of where your strengths are, develop them, be able to talk about them, and then put yourself where you think those strengths will serve you best in the organisation, which some people do and some people don't. And that may well affect their happiness or their productivity in their careers. The next question that he raises in there is, how do I perform? And these are really good questions if you're going for a promotion board, because guess what? Performance is part of what the board are interested in. It's your primary role as a sergeant, as an inspector, as a chief inspector, to drive performance. So how do you perform? And knowing how to get things done. So you may be asked about things as simple as that. How do you get things done? And the other point he talks about is that everybody does this uniquely. Everybody performs differently, and yet they can rarely talk about what it is they do and how they perform. So that's why it's a good practice activity for you to get used to. I think some of the things he talks about in his book, do you learn by listening? Are you someone who learns by listening, or are you someone who learns by reading? Everybody's different, and maybe a combination of those, a hybrid approach. Writers generally learn by writing. I like to learn by listening and reading, and also watching things be done. So just understanding how you perform yourself and how you get things done, how you learn, are important. And so that he separates that, there's another question, how do I learn? So knowing how you learn and applying what you learn. So he said some people, even if they don't know how they learn, I'll ask them the question, how do you apply what you learn? And he finds that people can't answer that question as well. So do you put that into action is what he's saying. So it's all very well knowing how you learn, but do you actually apply it in the workplace? What are my values? Well, I've done videos about that, so I don't propose to dwell too much on that particular question. But he reduces it. He says it's not necessarily a code of ethics, but the code of ethics or the test of ethics does apply to everybody. So, what kind of person do you want to see in the mirror when you wake up each morning? And that's a really good leadership lesson. Describe that. Who is it that you want to see? What is it that you want to see staring back at you in the mirror? And just describe yourself in terms of your values from there. What are your values? And who is or what is the person that you want to see in the mirror looking back at you? And the other question he talks about as a fundamental question in this book is, where do I belong? And that's a question clearly for you to ask yourself, because there are people coming into policing now that don't stay for 30 years. It's not a vocation for them, and clearly they belong somewhere else. So they may come in with shared values, or they may come in and find out that the values, as some people have found out, are not shared values with policing, and they leave. So that's a really fundamental question, where do I belong? And try and put yourself where your strengths and how you learn will best serve the organisation, and also serve yourself as you do that, as a leader, as a manager, as a supervisor. And the last kind of question that he asks in there is, what should I contribute? What should I contribute? So, what will you do when you get given your stripes or your pips? What will you do with them? How will you contribute? So bringing that into a promotion board or selection process context is quite good. So given your strengths and your way of performing and your values, how can you make the greatest contribution to what needs to be done in policing? How can I deliver results that are visible, measurable and meaningful? How can I make a difference? So that's a great little book, just to kind of trigger and support and provoke some thinking for you ahead of a promotion selection process. It's good because it asks those fundamental questions, and they're good questions for you to reflect on. Okay, thank you for listening to me on my dulcet brummy tones, and I will be back with another short book review for you shortly. Thank you.